Hello, colleagues. Thank you so much for joining me as we look over the updated Academic Success Workshop held within Canvas. So, the completion of this workshop, we know, is one of the two essential steps that students need to take in their journey to get themselves back to good academic standing. And that is going to be outlined in the workshop information that is shown to students as soon as they sign in. So, all P1 students have been invited to this Canvas. It used to live within the Success at UNC shell, but we found that there were some technical difficulties that some students were experiencing, which made it difficult for them to access the workshop. So we've moved it into a new location, and only students who have been designated P1 were invited to this workshop. So the completion of this workshop, again through Canvas, is going to be a requirement. And so we have students take a few minutes to look over the workshop information, essentially informing them why they've been invited to this workshop and that they are at this point below a 2.0 for their cumulative GPA, and that this is a hopeful first step in helping them to reach their good standing GPA of a 2.0 or above cumulatively. So we give students information about the workshop. It is going to be something that takes about 30 minutes for students to complete on average. They can start and finish later. They can do it on their own time, but of course, we're getting to the point in the semester where we're hoping students are working diligently to get this step figured out and finished. And then, secondly, knowing that students, once they've submitted and completed the academic success workshop, they will need to schedule a meeting with their probation support or their probation advisor to discuss their goals and make a plan based off of what they went over in the academic success workshop. Additionally, it gives students some information about the Success at UNC shell, which is available to all UNC students. And it's going to have different types of resources available. So, whether it is academic support, financial support, wellness, ways to get more involved in campus. And those are all things that are good to highlight for our probationary students, but this is a separate entity, this academic success workshop. It's also recommended that students try to complete the academic success workshop on a laptop or a desktop computer, as sometimes the formatting on the mobile version can be a little confusing. Additionally, we give students some ideas of what will happen after they have completed the workshop. So, once they've completed and submitted their quiz here within the workshop, they'll receive a confirmation email from the Probation at UNC email account, typically within 2 to 3 business days, but we're getting them turned out pretty quickly now, so it should be less than a day at this point. Additionally, their advisor, who is designated as their probation advisor, will receive notification that they've completed the workshop. And then again, encouraging the students to complete the second step of the academic success workshop, which is to schedule a meeting with their academic support. If they have already done that, I think it's a good idea to have a follow up meeting when available to review the plans that students make within the confines of this workshop. And then we definitely want to help students feel like they are being successful in terms of knowing what is coming next. So, the purpose of the Academic Success Workshop is to facilitate the development of a student's broader understanding of UNC's probation policy, encourage the student to reflect on what contributed to their GPA dropping below good academic standing or at less than a 2.0 cumulative GPA, and finally, assist the student in successfully preparing for a meeting with their probation advisor through prompting the student to explore their goals and think about actionable items they can take to get back to good academic standing. So, we're going to take a look at the different components of the workshop now. So, taking a look at what the students see in the academic success workshop, again, they're given an overview of the academic success workshop. Oh, we jumped out of student view real quick. Here we go. Okay, so students are going to see the quiz directions, the workshop quiz directions, and again, it's going to give them an overview of what we're looking at. So they are placed on probation due to their GPA being less than a 2.0 cumulative, and then the two steps that they need to take in order to have their probation hold removed, which is again completing and submitting the academic success workshop and meeting with their academic advisor. We are going to give students a goal worksheet that I will attach to the email that I'm sending out to everybody, as well as have on the Canvas page. And so this is going to be a way that students can have a fillable success goal worksheet and make sure that they click the download arrow here to get the fillable version. This is a guided document which is directly aligned with the content of the workshop and will be a place for students to collect their thoughts and hopefully be able to take down some notes of some things that they want to talk about with their academic success support. And then again, another plug for the success at UNC. And then finally, once you complete the workshop, these next three things will happen. So, really wanting to reiterate what is important for them to know. Okay. So, starting the quiz, I'll let you know that every question in the quiz is going to start with a brief explainer video. Now, I'm not going to play these videos for you in this recording today, but I will have the YouTube playlist linked so you can go and independently watch these videos. But again, every question is going to have a video support. So the first question is going to be clearly defining student outcomes. So what are we wanting the students to get out of being a part of this academic success workshop? What are they expecting to know and expected to know by the end of this? So, this first video is going to be going over the student learning outcomes or the things that we want students to know by the end of this workshop. And so, of course, the three main things that we are hoping students will get out of this is identify milestones in the policy. In our probation policy specifically. So, knowing the amount of probation credits that they have, knowing how many classes they need to take, knowing what their GPA needs to be is very important. We'll also learn how to calculate GPA, so using the GPA calculator tool and how to support students in looking at that to make goals for moving their GPA more towards a good academic standing. And then finally, describe strategies to raise their GPA and hopefully being able to start talking about some of those factors and barriers that prevented them from having a successful academic semester. Okay. So, question two is going to also be talking about big picture and really talking about what is academic review, what is academic probation, and finally, how does that impacting financial aid? So, this is a question I know that as advisors we get quite a lot, particularly when we're looking at satisfactory academic progress and how that interplays with being a student on probation. And so, this video is going to give a brief explainer and then we're going to talk about how a student is placed on probation. So, of course, the policy basics, we talk about what is a GPA and then break down what is a term GPA versus a cumulative GPA and helping students to understand that in order to be placed on probation semester one, have the P1 designation, they need to have had a cumulative GPA of less than a 2.0. And so we want students to know that this is the reason why they have been placed on academic probation. We also want to clearly define that students have 24 credit hours of probation credits. And so while they are on designation P1 or probation semester one, they have 24 credit hours dispersed in whatever way that works for them, um, except for interim winter session classes where they can be on probation and working towards getting that GPA up. And finally, helping them know that 2.0 and higher is good academic standing, and that is our goal for them. The next question is going to be helping students to understand more about standard letter grades and so how grades are calculated. So, just beyond talking about what is a term GPA and a cumulative GPA, we also want students to understand that not every class is going to count towards probation credits. And so, of course, we want students to know that only standard letter grades are going to count towards the probation process. And so, of course, we want to have students clearly be set up for success and know what is important to know. And so, the question at the end of this video, how many total probation credits do you have for academic review or while you're on academic probation? The correct answer is 24 credits with A to F letter grade at the end. Students who are in classes that have a SU option or who withdraw from a course are not going to count those credits towards their probationary credits. Again, it's also only for classes that are taken at UNC unless the student is participating in Fresh Start or Fresh Start returning. But if they're a student at UNC, it has to be 24 credit hours with an A to F grade at the end to count towards your GPA. Question number 4 is going to prompt students to think about some other ways in which they can maybe receive credits beyond just the traditional fall and spring semester. So it's important for students to know that interim and summer classes are options, but not necessarily good options for probation students. In fact, students who are placed on P1 are not eligible to take interim or winter break courses. However, they are eligible to take summer classes, and this is going to count in their 24 credit hours of probation. It is important for students to think, though, what are some reasons why you would and maybe would not take a summer class? Do you think it would help or be more of a challenge for you? So, for some of our students, taking a summer course is a viable option and could be very helpful for them. For other students, maybe it is due to their living situation or their financial situation or their work schedule that is not going to be a viable option for them. So, I think it's important to describe it as an option, but definitely not set it as the expectation that students are taking summer classes in order to be successful. Question number 5 is helping students to understand GPA and advising and how these two things go together. And so, knowing that a probation advisor, will be going over the academic success workshop with the student really means that we're hoping to help them understand how to calculate their GPA and help them to set a GPA goal for the semester. It's also very important for us as advisors who are working with PC or probation continuing students that we're able to check in on the status of how many probation credits they have left and set GPA goals accordingly. Working with you and the GPA calculator to set a GPA target for the semester. So essentially, what's going to happen is that we're hoping to use the GPA calculator to help students understand what type of GPA that they are looking for as a target GPA. So we do have a simple GPA equation here. Once you've been able to access the student's transcript, which is located in URSA, you'll be able to find the information about quality points versus GPA hours. And essentially, quality points divided by GPA hours is going to equal a GPA. And so, for example, you can use this as a way to understand what a student's GPA is going to be looking forward. And you can estimate what a student's quality points are going to be and what their target GPA should be using the GPA calculator, which is available in Canvas. Okay. And so we prompt the students to do a exercise where they work on this, right? And so the end answer is going to be a 3.01, but we want students to understand that the GPA would can be considered to be in good standing and not review because it's larger than a 2.0. So we want to make sure that students are understanding how to use these formulas and these tools. There is going to be a GPA calculator practice session available on Canvas as well in conjunction with this. Okay, question 6 is talking about suspension. So, while we want to be realistic with our students and give them all the information that they need to know about what could potentially come of being a student who is on probation, we also want to be encouraging to them. So, I would highly suggest using your discretion on when you have the conversation about suspension with students. But again, I do believe that it is important for us to make sure that students know what potential consequences are of not being able to lift your GPA up above a 2.0 cumulatively. So, this video goes into information about official notification of suspension, when that time happens at the end of the semester after final grades are posted, and then what suspension appeals steps look like. And so, one of the reasons why we have students go through the academic success workshop is to start prompting those thoughts about what they can do to help them make some positive changes in their approach to their academics and or encourage them and empower them to seek out those assistances that they might need in order to be academically successful. And so, one of the things that we talk about in this video is what suspension looks like, how a suspension appeal works, deadlines and action steps, and then letters as well. And so we talk about how the reflection aspect of the academic success workshop is a great starting point if and when a student might need to write an appeals letter for academic suspension. And so then we go into a couple of scenario based questions based off of what students know about GPA in the last question and the new information about suspension scenarios. So we do know that if a student dips below a 1.0 while on academic probation, they are going to be placed on suspension. And then additionally, if a student runs out of probation credits and still has not completed their academic success workshop and probation programs, as well as raising their cumulative GPA up to a 2.0, they would also be placed on suspension. And so, as we look at these different scenarios, we select these two because Claus started the semester with a 1.3 as a student on probation and used 15 probation credits. They ended the semester with a 0.86. So their GPA did not move up. It was below a 1.0 semester, and so they are placed on academic suspension. The second student that we select is Haley, who started the semester with a 1.8 GPA and used 24 probation credits. And then she ended up ending the semester with a 1.92 GPA. This student would also be placed on suspension because they did not meet the 2.0 threshold and have used all of their probation credits at this point. So, talking about probation, suspension, all of that can be scary and some tough convos to have with students. But we want to also make sure that students know that in addition to appealing a suspension, there are some other options that they have in terms of getting themselves back to good academic standing as a student at UNC. So, the first one is going to be readmission. So, we know that some students are not going to appeal their suspension. Some students are maybe not going to successfully appeal their suspension. The policy at UNC is that once a student has spent a semester on suspension, they are eligible for readmission and can apply for readmission through the Office of the Registrar. Additionally, UNC has a two-pronged program called Fresh Start. And so, how is a student able to know if they are a good candidate for our Fresh Start freshmen and our Fresh Start returning programs? Well, first of all, it's good for students to be prepared in terms of showing how they have made some changes in terms of how they are approaching their academics, as well as knowing that they are eligible for readmission after one semester on suspension. So, for the freshman program, for the Fresh Start, and I have a separate presentation that I will be sending out to everybody that has that information. But essentially, what it is less than 30 credits of college credits, including transfer and pre college courses. So a student has to have less than 30 credits. They must go to a different institution and take 24 transferable credit hours while earning at least a 2.5 cumulative GPA in those courses, specifically 12 credit hours. And then all grades C minus or lower will be removed from their graduation and GPA total when they are and if they are given clearance to come back to the university through the Fresh Start freshman program. They additionally will need to earn a 2.5 GPA on their first 12 credit hours at UNC when they've transferred back. So, for returning students, the Fresh Start program requires that students have been away from UNC for 3 years or more. And so it's going to be the same deal for them. They're going to have had the ability to take transferable credits at a different institution, maintaining a 2.5 or above. They're going to be able to bring those transfer credits to UNC and then have the expectation of completing um, at least a 2.0 GPA moving forward as a student at UNC. And so for knowledge check, we're going to be talking about the different types of things that student need to know about the appeal type. So an immediate suspension appeal is going to be right away because you want to return for UNC for the upcoming semester. So students would be appealing their suspension immediately after the end of the semester once they've been given their academic standing. And those dates are on our website and are updated for the suspension appeals process for the spring semester. A readmission appeal is going to be most appropriate after a student has taken at least one semester off from UNC. So if they've been suspended but are wanting to come back after a semester, that would be the most appropriate time for them to seek out readmission. Fresh start first year appeal is going to be after taking at least 24 credit hours at a different institution and if you earned fewer than 30 credits at UNC. And then finally, fresh start returning appeal is going to be most appropriate for students after taking at least 3 years off from UNC. And again, I go into more in-depth information on this in another presentation that I will be sending. Okay. Question 8 is a knowledge check. And so we're asking students to understand when they would be looking out for those appeals deadlines. So when we have these conversations about deadlines, right, we really want to be setting students up for success and be consistent in how we are delivering this information. And so students can always go to our advising probation support page to see when those deadlines are for the semester. But generally, suspension appeals are going to be due in January for the fall semester, May for the spring semester, and August for the summer semester. Readmission appeals and fresh start applications are accepted all the time. But that doesn't necessarily mean students can start at a particular time. We need to make sure that they are in the bounds of what the timeline is for their fresh start or their readmissions. And so when you are placed on suspension, when would the appeal be due, generally speaking? So we want students to know that it's going to be right after finals every semester. Wonderful. Question 9 is the reflection question. And so we want students to start thinking about some goal setting and how they can use what resources they have available or what they hear about from their probation success advisor to be able to move forward positively and to go towards that 2.0 and above GPA for good standing. So we have students think about what has worked well for them in the past and what do they need to change or try that's different this semester. And so, really wanting to give students an opportunity to talk about bright spots, what has worked well for them in the past, and also think about growth areas. What are some things that maybe you would need to change or try out this semester? And so, we also give a note that this question is the same question that they will need to address if they are placed on academic suspension and they appeal. And so, thinking about how they can create a plan that works for them but also be thinking about how they can be challenging themselves and pushing themselves to be more um, forthright in how they are approaching their academic success. Whether, again, it needs to be a question of accessing the tutoring center or seeing professors in office hours or making some adjustments to their lifestyle or seeking out other types of assistance and counseling or guidance of any sort is really important. And so this is the reflection question that we record in our probation materials, as well as put into the note on a student's Navigate page. So this is what we are working on. It is what is sent to all students, and advisors will have access to it in their Navigate. And then finally, our last few questions are going to be feedback questions from students about the content of the workshop. And so, again, we really want to reiterate that there are no right answers because their feelings and experiences are all very valid and helpful. But we are just looking for some feedback from students to help make sure that we are serving them and meeting them where they need to be. So, question 10 is going to ask, what topics have you explored or do you plan on exploring in the Success at UNC shell to help you reach your plan? Again, this is a great time to plug the Success at UNC shell that is accessible to all students, not just P1 students, but giving students an opportunity to go back and look at some other resources that might support their goals and might support bright spots and growth areas in how they are approaching the upcoming semester. Question 11 is, what topics do you feel are missing and that would support your success? Please describe a challenge or a topic you might want to know more information or support on. And so this is a great spot for students to say, these are some other things that I feel like might be helpful in terms of content, in terms of resources, in terms of applicable ways in which they would feel supported in their probation journey. And then finally, our last question is asking if students would be interested in and or use a discussion board or other peer group tool to connect with other students on academic review and probation. And again, we are just looking for students to give us information about what they would maybe find to be helpful. And so really the breakdown on this is going to be I'm suspecting by the end of the semester about a 60-40 split of 60% of students really not being interested in this type of resource and about 40% of students who are interested in this type of resource. So that is absolutely something we will be exploring about incorporating into the future. Okay, well, that is our academic success workshop overview. Please know that in the Canvas shell, I will also include a link to the YouTube that has all of the videos that Haley made, as well as resources for the nuances between fresh start and readmission, as well as some different resources with the GPA calculator.